So we've been exploring this theme of commitment since we started back after New Year. We've had 2 weeks on this theme of commitment, which was not planned, it's just spontaneously happened. And yeah, this morning I just wanted to say a little bit more about this theme of commitment. Those of you who've been over the last 2 weeks, I hope you're getting a sense that when we are talking about commitment in the context of Buddhism, but in the context of this center in particular, commitment is something positive. Because it can sound a bit like narrowing one's options down, being made to do something. But of course, commitment in Buddhism is entirely voluntary. That's the first thing. It's something you would choose to do, to commit yourself to Buddhism. And that choice would come out of inspiration. You would be choosing it out of positive motivations. It might be that you're just so attracted to what Buddhism offers that you decide to commit to it. It might be that everything that's not Buddhism is so unattractive that you choose it, but still that's a positive choice, a voluntary choice. So just bear that in mind, because the word commitment can have different connotations for different people, can have a particular sound. But we're always talking about something voluntary and chosen out of inspiration, positively chosen. So that's the first thing, important. One of the things I really appreciated 2 weeks ago when Triratna spoke, that set things off in the right tone, that commitment is a positive thing, because he was talking about, for a commitment to be effective, one needs to have a vision, so a sense of what it is that we're making a commitment to. One needs a path, so a way to actually move towards it, and one needs a community. It's very hard, isn't it, to commit to something and stick to it on your own if nobody else is doing it. So the more we have a community around, a community of like-minded people who share our vision and are on the same path as us, the more effective then that commitment will become. The realization of that commitment will be more likely to happen. So that in itself, vision, path, community, is a very inspiring vision that is on offer, that Buddhism offers. Then last week we were talking more in terms of how to make that more specific. So you could find a vision, a path and a community all over Berlin. You could find different communities with different visions and different paths. So we wanted to talk last week about why, or how that works here, how commitment deepens within a context of a Triratna Buddhist center. And there are different ways one can do that, but we were talking specifically about ordination. So this moment in one's life where you might decide to make a lifelong commitment to the Buddhist vision within this particular community. And we were talking about the decision to ask to do that, first of all, because it has to be asked for. It's voluntary. You don't get told to do it or made to do it. Even right until the last moment, the people performing the ordination ceremony, they're very keen to tell you, you don't have to do this. The door is there, you can go in the other direction. So it's a voluntary choice, like I've said. We were talking about why we decided to make that choice. We talked about the whole training process, which over several years involves doing all these different retreats. We talked about the highs and the lows, the ordination retreat itself in Spain for several months, and a little bit about what came after, how it was afterwards. So it's 10 years since we were ordained together, so we were looking back over that period. But it felt like there was so much we hadn't said. We hadn't given any space for questions. It felt like there was so much more that we could explore on the theme. And I think it's important that we do, because it might look to you, or to many of you, it might just look like there's a couple of people around wearing these who've been ordained, and then there's everybody else. And it's hard to know what that means unless we talk about it. So we just want to talk a bit more about ordination and what being an order member means and what it is. But also, it's not the case that there's just a few of us in the room who are order members and then there's everybody else. Because there's a whole range of people in the room with different levels of experience. So some of you might be here for the first time, for example. Just a quick show of hands if you are here for the first time. Yeah, so there's a few of you. Each week we are always having people who are here for the first time. I know there's a lot of you who come regularly, because I can see so many familiar faces. But then there's also people in the room who are what we call mitras, which means friends. And being a mitra is a kind of provisional commitment, or it's a specific way of deepening one's engagement or practice in the center. Again, you have a ceremony here in the Buddhist center where you decide that for the moment, this is my main place of practice. I believe that I'm a Buddhist and I want to follow the Buddha's path, and this is where I'm going to do it. And people have a ceremony, and that's publicly witnessed. So just a quick show of hands, just to put people on the spot. Who is a mitra in the room? Yeah, so quite a lot of you. And then some of those people who are mitras have also decided that they want to be ordained and embark on that journey of training and doing all these retreats for many years, and eventually have one of these round the neck and a Buddhist name, and that's it for the rest of their life, probably. So maybe the people who've asked for ordination, I'm really going to put you on the spot now. Could you just stand up? And there's a reason I'm asking you to do this. Just stand up. Okay. All right, thank you. It's interesting how they all end up in the same part of the room, most of us. So I said that because it's good for you to know, because if you've got questions about why on earth would somebody choose to do that, then you can ask them. Yeah, you don't just have to ask us, you can also ask them. So you can see I don't have a very clear thread here, I'm just exploring some themes. So we just want to talk a bit more about it, and there are a few things since last week that have been on my mind, so I'd like to pick up on a few things and say a bit more about them. But first of all, just a key thing that came up last week was something that makes ordination into the Triratna Buddhist community, of which this center is part. One thing that makes it kind of special, I wouldn't say unique, but perhaps unusual compared to other parts of the Buddhist tradition, is that we describe our ordination as being neither monastic nor lay. Yeah, so neither monastic nor lay. So those of us who are order members are not monks or nuns, but we're not lay Buddhists either. And normally, as Buddhism has developed, normally there's been a distinction between the monastic Sangha and the lay Sangha. And you are one or the other, and nothing in between.
What does lay mean?
So lay means not monastic. So if you're ordained as a monk or a nun, then you're given a certain set of precepts, and it will include things like celibacy, living a monastic life, probably wearing robes, probably shaving your head, but that's not universal by any means. So you live a monastic life in a particular setting, and you follow a particular number of precepts depending on which tradition you're in, which can be very long. So specific ethical principles or observances. Yeah. If you're ordained as a lay Buddhist, then you're not a monk or a nun. Your lifestyle choice remains perhaps more like it did previously. But you also receive a certain set of ethical guidelines or principles. But they're probably different for monks and nuns and lay people. So it's interesting because in that system, what is very, very important is the lifestyle choice and the difference in choice of lifestyle. Yeah? And the way the commitment happens differs, because some people have a monastic ordination, some people have a lay ordination. It's different for different people. They follow different ethical guidelines or principles or precepts. What I think's different about Triratna is that that's kind of reversed. So Sangharakshita, who founded our tradition in the 1960s, he said actually commitment should be the primary thing, the first thing. So everybody who's ordained within Triratna has the same ordination. Yeah, there's no distinction between monks and nuns and lay people. It's the same ordination ceremony for everybody. Everybody means men, women, non-binary people. It's the same ordination. Everybody gets the same ethical precepts, the same 10 ethical precepts. So the commitment is the most important thing. The lifestyle choice is more secondary and more open. So some people do choose to live more like monks or nuns. They're not, but they might live more of that kind of lifestyle. They might live in a retreat center, away from the world, so to speak. Others might have lives in the city like I do. They might have a career rather than working for Buddhism and teaching Buddhism full time. They might have children. So the lifestyle question remains open for us. So I think that is a key distinction, or something that makes our ordination perhaps not what you might expect when you come to a Buddhist center. I'm just wondering if there are any questions about that or anything I've said so far. I'll probably do this. I'll just try and pause just to let things sink in. Maybe you've got questions. Peter's got his hand up at the back. Yeah.
Thinking about the word commitment and the word, and it seems to be connected to the idea of rejecting something. So could you speak about commitment to something and rejection of the other?
Say the last part again. Can you speak of commitment as?
I'm interested in when I make a decision to commit to something, am I not also at the same time choosing to reject something else?
Yeah, I think you could talk of it like that, couldn't you? If there's a vision, if you're committing to a vision for something, it implies that that's different to perhaps what you currently experience, what you currently know. So I'd say there's a moving towards something and a moving away from something. Maybe rejection is quite a strong word, but there's a moving away from a particular orientation to life, perhaps. I'm going to say a bit more about that later when I get onto my theme about names. But maybe that's enough for now. Then there's a question here.
How long does it take to get ordained?
It's a good question. Different lengths of time for different people. Yeah. It's normally a matter of years, but it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, could be 10 years. It really depends on how the process unfolds for an individual person. So I think this came up last week that you might do specific retreats. There's a kind of whole training program, if that's the right word. There's a whole path. But yeah, it just depends. For different people, that takes longer to come to a point where they feel that they're ready to make a lifelong commitment, and they know what conditions are needed in their lives to see that through. And for other people in the order to recognize that they are also ready. So it's a kind of dialogue, communication between the individual and other people in the order. And there are ordination teams in different retreat centers who it's their specific job or responsibility to support people in that and to help and really get to know them and see if and when they're ready. Yeah, all right, at the back.
I wasn't here last week, so you already addressed it. But I thought I heard you say something about 10 things you commit to, or I was wondering what they are.
Yeah, so they're the 10 ethical precepts that order members take. And if you're aware of the 5 ethical precepts that we sometimes chant, it really is those 5 with a few extra ones or expanding out on some of those 5. Sangha Darshani is going to be talking about them next week, I believe. So I won't say much more. Just to quickly rifle through them and see if I can do that at top speed. Loving kindness, generosity, stillness, simplicity, contentment, truthful speech, helpful speech, harmonious speech, kindly speech, tranquility, what's the other one? Compassion and wisdom. Is that it? Unmodern, did you say? Yeah. I thought I heard some gulping when.
Say, what is a lifelong commitment to impermanence?
You're trying to catch me out. Or you could say, I remember on my ordination course, it was very much stressed that this is a commitment for the rest of your life, or lifetimes. And then people were gulping. It was like, whoa, they're potentially. Anyway, let's not go into rebirth and stuff. I'm just give me a moment with this one. I think again I will come back to this when I talk about names, because I see what you mean, but I will come back to it when I talk about names, because in that context I think I can communicate it better through that. Okay, I like the hands are really popping up now, aren't they? So I'm just going to take 2 more, and then we will. I'll move on and say something else. But if you've still got questions, park them.
The question is what it takes to commit for a lifetime. And is there certain qualities, certain personality traits? What are the things that are being valid when decisions they've made that the person can take on the commitment of a lifetime?
That's a great question. Did everybody hear the question? Okay, so what are the... Can you just take it again?
The question... So I can just turn and...
Thanks, there's probably more.
The question is what it takes, qualities, personality traits, to be able to commit for a lifetime. So what are the people, as they are in the ordination course, what's the people who are making decisions for them, what they're looking for, or what is being valued in this process?
So how does somebody know that you are ready to make a lifelong commitment? How do you know yourself that you're ready to make a lifelong commitment? Well, it came up in one of the weeks, of the last 2 weeks, that you can only commit to the unknown. This is something Sangharakshita once said. He felt you could only commit to the unknown. Because if you already know what's going to happen, it's not quite a commitment, is it? Because you know it's going to happen. So the commitment is to the path, in a sense, and where that will take you. So I say that because I think one of the main things that others might be looking for, or that one's trying to develop for oneself, is to know what conditions you need in your life in order to keep taking the next step and the next step. Yeah, so very simply, if you've been trying to put a meditation practice together in your life for however long, you already know there are certain conditions that are helpful and certain conditions that are not helpful. Yeah, so one condition that might be helpful is to make space for it every day, to have a quiet spot in your room or whatever to do the meditation, to come to the Buddhist center regularly and meditate with others. These are supportive conditions. Then other things might disrupt that. You know, if I'm on my phone for half an hour just before I meditate, it's probably not a helpful condition that I'm setting for the meditation. Yeah. So taking that simple example, then expanding it to your whole life. So what are the things that would support you to keep the vision alive? The vision in this case being the possibility to gain enlightenment like the Buddha gained enlightenment. What conditions allow you to keep that in view, even if it's lost, because it's lost, isn't it? Like often. What conditions help us to keep remembering, this is what I'm really looking for in life? What are the conditions that help you stay on the path? It might be having strong connections with other people who are also doing it. It might be knowing the Dharma, knowing the Buddha's teaching, studying it regularly, meditating regularly. What are the conditions that help you stay in touch with a community? So if people can see that those conditions are present in somebody's life, then there's confidence that they can keep going. If you know yourself and through trial and error you've discovered what are the conditions you need, then that makes it, you have confidence then in yourself, I think, to keep going. Having said all that, there's also something that's hard to put into words that I think is activated in the course of one's spiritual practice. This sense of vision and knowing what's true in life, having a sense of that, having a confidence in that. It's kind of hard to say whether somebody has that or not, and it can take time to see that. It's hard to say whether you have it or not, because sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not there. But over time we see, oh no, this is my path, this is the direction, this is what I'm being drawn to. Sangharakshita used to speak of a gravitational pull. So the force of gravity is strong, isn't it? If I pick up the cup and let go of it, it smashes to the floor. And sometimes we feel the gravitational pull of habit, old habits, things that actually don't make us happy, but we keep getting drawn to them. We can also feel the gravitational pull of something that makes us feel free, makes us feel like we're more aware, more sensitive, more loving, more generous. We feel this pull. It's hard to say what it is that's creating that kind of gravitational pull, but probably we've all felt that to some degree, or you wouldn't have chosen to come to a Buddhist center. But there's something that had a little draw on your heartstrings, let's say. Okay, let's just be with that, and then there's another question here.
Why would you say Sangha Rakshita chose to actually found an order with this possibility of ordination, as opposed to just practicing, not having an order, trying to get along, as many other groups and
Yeah. So the question was, why did Sangha Rakshita choose to found a new order in 1968? Yeah. So why not just carry on with things, or why not just let people kind of not do it by themselves, but why have the formality of joining an order? Yeah. Again, it's, I think, a big question. I don't want to go too much into the whole history of how Buddhism came to the West, developed in the West. But the reason he founded a new order in the first place was in response to what he saw as a need. So in Britain at that time there were Buddhists, there were Western Buddhists, and there had been for, I guess, a few decades. But they were traditional forms of Buddhism that had come over from the East. And again, they had this monastic and lay distinction, which I'm not criticizing, by the way. I think that has there's a place for that in the world. But he felt that it wasn't necessarily helpful. His experience, both in Britain and as a monk himself in India, was that what that could lead to, in some cases, was a kind of first and second class Buddhism, which he didn't think was helpful for either party. So for the monks and nuns, maybe they were being supported by the lay people to do their practice, but not necessarily the lack of need to support themselves could lead to a kind of comfort or passivity. On the part of lay people, they were supporting the monks and nuns, and that was their practice, but they might not practice themselves in terms of really studying the Dharma and really going into meditation themselves. So he wanted to do away with the distinction and just have people that were simply Buddhist. You'd made the commitment, and it was down to you as an individual to practice. Nobody else could practice for you, and nobody could support you either. You had to have the initiative and the responsibility to be able to also support yourself. So I think that was a big factor. But still, your question is, do people need that? Why join an order when you could just be an individual Dharma practitioner? And of course, you can just be an individual Dharma practitioner. So one of the options for you is just to keep coming to the center, practicing the Dharma here with other people, and then going to another center on Sunday and another one on Monday, and you could make a Buddhist life out of that. And that, of course, is a perfectly valid option. I speak for myself and say the reason I chose to join an order was because I think in order for myself to go deep, I had to go back to Peter's question, who's disappeared, which is strange. To go back to Peter's question, to choose one tradition and one way and go into it very deeply meant leaving behind other options, but that actually can be helpful. There's this image we sometimes hear of, if you put a bucket down so many different wells part of the way, you won't hit the water, but if you put the bucket down one all the way, then you will hit the water. So I guess there's the advantage is depth, that you can really go deeply into one approach and one system of practice. The danger in that, of course, is that you exclude all of the presentations and it becomes a bit too insular and not broad enough. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both. But that was one reason, so depth. But also just the possibility of being part of an order and a community where everybody was putting the bucket down the same well. That really appealed to me, because we need companions on the path. And if you're both going further and further and further together, or all of you are going further and further together, you're united in that. If someone's going more in that direction and you're going in more direction like this, of course you can be friends and you can share that, but there might be a limit to how much you can share that life. And I wanted to go deep and fully share the life I'm living with other people, for them to support me and for me to support them. I can expand on that. I'm going to expand on that a bit with one of the themes I had in mind, but I'm aware there are other questions, so just keep those in mind. Yeah, just keep the question in mind. I'll come back to you. So I wanted to say something about names. And perhaps one of the most visible signs of being an order member, apart from wearing this, which we don't do all the time, do we? So you'll notice as soon as the class ends, we take these off, and then we're just kind of mingling around and no one can see who we are, kind of thing. We don't stand out again. So this is our equivalent of the robe. So I think in the traditional ceremonies, when people were ordained as monks or nuns and were given a robe, they would also be given a belt. So the robes would be put in the hand and the belt would be put around the neck. And some traditions did away with the robes, but they kept the belt as a thing around the neck, and then it becomes a symbolic object. So we keep that tradition. But when we take these off, it's not obvious who the order members are. That's why we wear them as well, so that you all know who's in charge here, or who to go to if you need to ask something. But then the other thing is our names, isn't it? So everybody who's ordained takes a Buddhist name, a Sanskrit or a Pali Buddhist name. So I wanted to say something about that, because I would say that's had a very strong impact on my life and ties a few of the other points and things together. So first of all, in taking a name, like Peter said, taking a new name means dropping an old name, doesn't it? So my old name, and I feel like I don't quite want to say this, but I'm going to do it to make a point. So my old name was Matthew. Yeah. People used to call me Matt for short. My surname was McCarthy. So McCarthy is an Irish name, although in my family my dad and his dad were born in England. So I couldn't get the Irish passport to get around Brexit. I had to take the hard road with that. So Matthew McCarthy, and already in saying it, you can see how it's tied to family. Like I've already mentioned, it's a family name. So that McCarthy comes from my dad's side of the family. And the reason I'm reluctant to say it, or now I've said it and feel slightly vulnerable. The reason that is difficult is because now you know that, you could use that. You could call me that name, yeah. And if you called me that name, that would be really, really weird for me. Because I don't feel like that person anymore. And it comes with so many associations. So Matthew was the name, I guess I was probably given the name, maybe it was chosen before I was born, but I was definitely given it legally a few days afterwards when, I'm guessing my dad went to the office and they wrote my name on a piece of paper and that was it. That was who I am. So it became an identity after a couple of days of being born, into which my whole life then unfolded. Yeah. So everybody at school would call me that name. Anything legal any document, any letter would have that name on. All my friends would call me by that name. Family. It's on my GCSE, A-level, degree, certificates. It's a whole identity. So to call me that now would feel strange because I don't identify as being that person. Yeah. Doesn't mean that I'm kind of cut off from everything that happened before I was ordained. But the problem with names is that often we take the name and then we fix something. Yeah, so it happens with objects, doesn't it? If we know the name for it, then we don't have to pay attention to it anymore. So the name carries certain assumptions about us in our own minds and in the eyes of other people. One of the ways I notice this most is when I'm listening to bird song. And I know what the bird is, but once I've named it, like, that's a blackbird, I stop listening to the song. And I'm sort of happy with myself because I know what the bird is, it's a blackbird. And then I kind of go back to whatever I'm doing. But then the beauty of the song is kind of lost or ignored again. So I think it's possible to do that with people. If we know the name, all our assumptions about them or about ourselves come up, and then there's a fixing. Yeah. So there's something symbolically about the time of ordination when you say, I'm no longer fixed by who I've been all my life. All my conditioning, all the things that have happened to me, all the things I associate with that name, now is an opportunity to go beyond that. So like I say, it's not a cutting off. I'm very happy with Matthew McCarthy's life up until 2016, even though it wasn't all a bed of roses. Good things have come from that. So I wouldn't want to cut off from that. I'm not cutting off from my family by no longer using my family name. But something wasn't enough. In that life and with that identity, something wasn't enough. And somehow finding the Buddha's vision, the Buddha's path, the Buddhist community, choosing to make that lifelong commitment was opening that out. New possibilities, new potential. And to name that was really important, or to rename that felt really important. There's this image we have for the time of ordination. I was saying last week, there are two parts to the ordination ceremony. In the first part, which we call the private ordination ceremony, in the context of a retreat, you leave the shrine room like this. You would leave the shrine room on your own, and you would go to another small room somewhere, and you would meet in there with another order member, who we would describe as your private preceptor. And in the course of that ceremony, they will give you the new name, they'll give you a specific visualization and mantra recitation practice, and they'll give you the 10 precepts, ethical precepts ritually. And then you go back into the shrine room. And then a few days later you have the public ordination ceremony where everybody's there together who's been through that ritual. And then you find out everybody's name, because up till then you've been in silence, but suddenly everybody's new names are revealed. But the image that's often given is that walk to the meeting with the private preceptor on your own, which is symbolizing the fact that you will go it alone even if everybody else were to stop pursuing the vision. The image that's given is that that's like entering a tiger's cave. I think it comes from Zen, doesn't it? You're entering a tiger's cave and the footprints lead in, but no footprints lead out. So the idea is you go in as a particular person and that person never comes out again. The person who comes out is different, and that means that person has a new name. So you leave something behind, but you step into something else. So what you step into is has a new name, is named. So for myself, the name, maybe I should have said this at the beginning, sorry, is Padmasagara, which means ocean of lotuses. And when that was given to me by my private preceptor, Padmasagara, lots of P's, he told me the meaning first. So he said, your new name is Padmasagara, which means ocean of lotuses. And then he said that the ocean, Sagara, has been given partly because of my own history. So not going into detail, but generations of my family have been seafarers, have worked at sea. So there's a connection with the ocean and the sea. So he said he wanted to include something of that sort. But then he said, that's nice, but really the Sagara, the ocean, refers to the ocean of the Dharma, or the ocean of the Buddha's teaching. And he said, you need to go right to the bottom of that ocean and discover what's there. And then he said the Padma part, Padma means lotus, he said that's to remind you that spiritual life is one of growth. And he reminded me of the Buddha's vision of beings, people as being like lotuses growing in a pool of water. So he said, you need to grow, and you need to grow with other people. All of you like lotuses in this great ocean of the Dharma. And then that was pretty much it. And then I was out with this new name. And what I think some reflections on the name is that whereas Matthew McCarthy was definitely my name, this new name, I would say, partly it's mine, but in other ways it's not mine at all. So the new name is you, and it's not you at the same time. So there's something about the name that was naming a certain quality that he'd seen, something that I was bringing out and could bring out more fully. But also that quality is a quality of enlightenment. It's a quality of what's possible, what's deepest, and what's most true. So that's not mine, is it? That's naming something else that perhaps my life and the commitment will allow me to bring out into the world more fully, but it's not my name in a sense. So from a name that was kind of containing an identity, there was a name that was opening something out and expanding expanding a sense of self and ultimately going towards something selfless. Which I think relates to your point, Chai, about impermanence. How can you commit to something for life and all things are impermanent? Well, it is a commitment to something in time, but the nature of that commitment, in a sense, is timeless. Yeah. So the new name names someone, but names them in such a way that always that someone is trying to move out of a limited sense of identity. So any other questions? Yeah, there were a few already, weren't there? I think you had your hand up before.
How do you deal with setbacks when you are ordained? Because I can imagine that one's very bad and something can happen.
Yeah. How do you deal with setbacks once you're ordained is the question. And there are many setbacks after ordination. In fact, probably there are more. When we were ordained, we were told, weren't we, to make all the mistakes you can in the first 2 years, because after that it will just be embarrassing. And it is embarrassing, because we carry on making mistakes. We're not perfect. But how we deal with it, I think, is, like I said, through the training, learning what conditions are needed. Of course, there are setbacks that we cause through our own ignorance and other things that affect us. Our habits and our conditioning remain. So no ritual is going to completely remove those. But by stepping into the life of the order, I think you're stepping into conditions that support increasingly creative ways of responding to setbacks in life. And that's been my experience. I think I've got better at responding to setbacks. And also, again, why I think an order is helpful. I've witnessed others responding creatively to setbacks. So you just learn from each other. It's like a collective mind or a collective heart that is constantly aspiring to get bigger and bigger or deeper and deeper. Question here. Yeah.
I want to say the question is on what? Commitment, ethics, principles. I think the principles or ethics principles, they keep the same, they don't change in time. I think what changed is your evolution, your perception, or your relationship with these principles.
Yeah.
My question is, do you think this relationship with these principles are permanent, impermanent, and at the same time change your lifestyle, and it comes automatically, or it comes with effort?
I think you're right that the relationship to the precepts is constantly changing. So one would hope we're always deepening our understanding of what it actually means to live those ethical principles out in one's life. You could say that's the essence of being an order member, actually, that we're trying to clarify and deepen how we express those principles in our life. So I think that is always changing. I would say that does require effort, but also it requires a kind of humility and letting go around the precepts. So it's not just through effort that one's understanding emerges. I think effort is part of it, and conditions are necessary. So conditions might be things like reflecting on one's ethical actions and their consequences. It might be talking about them with other people. You have to make the effort to actually turn towards your ethical actions, sensitivity, and that kind of thing. But if we get too tight around making the effort and it all being down to me, maybe we miss the fact that there could be an innate sense of ethical sensitivity, clarity, awareness, love, which the Buddhist tradition also talks about as being present in a human being. I think to go any further with that, we'd need quite a bit more time, but I hope that gives a little flavour.
You were talking about commitment, and you yourself, I guess you have committed for quite a few years. So I was wondering, how would you say you have changed if you compare yourself to your former self? Like what has changed for you?
Yeah, you should ask Tarapalita that question, because it's 10 years since we formally committed and were ordained and everything. How have I changed?
Oh no.
Go on, you tell everyone how I've changed, and then I'll tell everyone. Or if you like, you can tell them what hasn't changed.
This is horrible.
I'm putting you on the spot, don't worry.
You were saying it's important to have a vision, and I think
Yeah.
it's quite important to reflect on that and to make it transparent as well, that how you as a person might be different from how you were 10 years ago. We obviously just know you now, and so I think that might be helpful to us.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, off the top of my head, I would say when I first met Padmasagara, he was very visionary in the sense of like the monastic thing, for example. Like he went all in, and but he was always. I think the ability to talk and express yourself is still there, and it's just improving and improving. But there is something of a deepening that's happened, and also a loosening, which is I think made you stronger. So like, he was always very committed. You know, like. At one point he had no bed, he had no object, he had nothing. He was sleeping on the floor, and that was it, he was going for it. And I was like, wow, I'm a long way from this. But then that kind of disintegrated, and there was an element of humiliation there. and
Setback.
the setback. And then deepened out into something much broader, which keeps expanding, maybe the kind of lotus part of it. And I would say a depth as well. There was a very strong focus and direction, but now it's kind of matured into something that's got some depth to it as well. And there you go.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree with that. I think it's interesting though you use the image of the lotus, and I would say I've had to go more towards the image of the ocean and live that part. Like going to the bottom. It's an interesting direction, isn't it, going down? And I think when we met 10 years ago, I was going up. Higher and higher, and I needed to go down, like my preceptor said, deeper and deeper, and that meant into the dark and into the mess and the messy parts of myself. Yeah. Okay.
Neil,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, in relation to that, if you would consider that a setback or a mistake, or what you would consider to be a setback or a mistake?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a setback. I'm kind of using that language loosely, but it's just what it is, isn't it? And if anything, maybe the learning has been to just be more confident in turning towards what's coming up, and that is the path. So it's not that setbacks are arising and I have to get them out the way so I can keep ploughing towards enlightenment. It's more that, no, these things that arise and are difficult, that is the path. And the transformation comes by coming fully into relationship to them and not denying those things. Because it's great having vision, but sometimes the vision, we can be so fixed on a vision and what things should be like, that we're not really in relationship to how things are. And if we're not in relationship to how things are, then what that vision is pointing through to can't manifest or come into being anyway. So the way we talk about it, we can use different models, can't we? There's going from here to there, and anything in between that gets in the way is a problem. And sometimes that model's helpful, but another one is actually what's here is simply here. And if I turn towards that and come into relationship to that, things can grow, things can emerge. So we're at time, I'm afraid, so there are still questions. You see, we could run for another week, probably on the same topic. But Sangadarshini will continue next week, I think on this track of commitment and looking more at ethical precepts. I just want to finish by saying that, in talking about ordination, like I said, all commitment within Buddhism is voluntary. Definitely not trying to advertise it and suggest that everybody has to do that, or that everybody has to change their name because your name is a kind of limitation on your life. Because of course that's not true. It's more like, this is the expression it's taken for me. But you're all here because presumably you want something in your life to either change or deepen or expand. There's some seed of something trying to come out in you. And that needs seeing, acknowledging, and to some extent naming. Yeah, so whether it's changing your name or not. But what is that? Like, what is that in you that is trying to come out and trying to grow and to find expression? And how will you come into relationship to that? And whether you do that here at the Buddhist Center or somewhere else, whether you do it here and just keep coming here and never choose the path of ordination, that's all great. But just be in touch with that. What is that? Nurture that, protect that, allow that to find more and more full expression. And we're talking about ordination because that's one option. And I think it is a really good option for many people, but not for everyone. So find your way, but this business of naming what that is, I think is really of value. Okay, thank you.